All right, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Client Interviews. Today we have Mark. Mark, I'm super excited to have you on today, man. Like, your story has actually been so inspirational because I remember like the very first day we spoke and you didn't end up joining, and there's a story behind that, and I'm sure we'll get into that. And then I think this was like 4 or 5 months after that. You spoke with one of our program coaches, Daniel, and then you ended up joining, and then it just like skyrocketed from there. Obviously, it wasn't immediate, but a big result I think Mark got was you mentioned, and if I remember this correctly, that when you were watching the videos, my YouTube videos for the very first time, you were doing like $500 a month. It was like a terrible place you were at. You're working 60 hours a week. You'd just gone through a harsh breakup too, and just a complete negative spiral. And I think your old business that you had, it almost like there was a bad falling out with your partner, and there was a lot of debt, and the tax authorities chasing you. There's just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of mess. But from there, you've managed to actually come out of it. And last month, or I think 2 months ago, you did your first 50K month. And
That's right.
from going from that place to bringing yourself out of it to doing 50K a month in your marketing business, it's outstanding, dude. It really shows like the strength of someone's character. So I'll just go ahead and let you introduce yourself. If there's anything I've missed, anything you want to fill me in on, and hopefully those who are watching too.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate having the opportunity to come on here and chat with you, Quasi. Your program has been great. Even before the program and watching your channel, it's been an inspiration to me, and it's been pivotal in helping me go from where I was at to where I am now. So, very much appreciative of that. And, hearing you go through those points, it's funny. I almost had forgotten some of them until you mentioned them, and
Right.
it has been quite a journey. And, for me, I think starting when I was watching your videos, you're right. I'd come off a business that I had started with a partner and put my heart and soul into, and discovered, unfortunately, that partner had, his principles were a little different than mine, and some shady things were happening financially on his end, and that led to a breakup of the business, unfortunately. And after that, I was unsure of what to do next, and I was a little lost in finding what I wanted to do, and started watching some of your videos. And at the time, I had, you're right. I had the government looking for, they had me tagged for $180,000 of tax owing. And I was making $500 a week, actually, working 60 hours a week, looking for what I wanted to be doing next. And, I felt lost. I wasn't sure what to do. And I'm like, well, what happened to my life? This isn't what I'd wanted. And I was unsure how to get myself from this place that I was in to a place that I wanted to get to. And yes, when we first chatted on the phone, I was actually, I had never watched one of your videos. So when we first talked, and we ended up actually FaceTiming, and you were telling me about your program. I'm like, this sounds great to me. Like, I really align to what you're saying, but I'm not too sure right now. And I literally just didn't have the funds available to join the program at that time. And but I knew that it was something that I wanted to join, and I just felt aligned to you right away, and I felt a connection, and it was something that I wanted to work towards. So yeah, over the months after that, I kept watching your YouTube videos, and eventually spoke to Daniel, and he got me into the program. And during that time as well, it was a very stressful period. More things were happening. It seems to be it was a lot of negative momentum going on in my life at the time.
Right.
But I watched the videos through the program, and then after a few months, things started to change. It was really, I finished the program earlier this year, I think around February, and then around, it's been a bit of a blur the last few months, but was it May? Just a few months later is when I surpassed $50,000 in a month, and then I followed that month up with $40,000, and by the end of this year, I'll be consistently hitting. My goal was to hit $25,000 a month consistently by the end of the year, and I will confidently be surpassing that. So
I remember that month when you posted that you were gonna pass your goal of 25K a month. I was so excited. I was like, oh my god. I was actually talking to Daniel. I was like, oh my god, Mark's gonna do 25K this month. This is so great.
Yeah.
Considering like because we've been seeing your posts on the Facebook group as well, like how you've transitioned through this journey. How you're building up and like all the things you're going through, which have been really really great. Thank you for sharing all of that too, for us to see. And then when you're like 25K a month, I was like, oh, he's gonna do 25K this month. I didn't
Yeah.
know you were going to do 50K that month. That's
Yeah,
insane.
man.
Doubled your
Yeah.
goal.
And it's, I can take you to the moment. It was very interesting, actually. When I did that, I started to, well, a number of things. There's a number of components involved here, as Quasi will show you through his program. It's not just one thing, but with me, I remember the moment when I when I surpassed it. It was like a surreal thing. I had signed on a new contract in my business, and there was an upside to the opportunity. And I said, this is going well. Things are going okay. Not a lot of traction financially yet. And I said to myself, well, what would be really cool? What would be a cool goal? And I'm like, I'd love to make $5,000 in a day. Like that would be great and push me
I remember
towards
that.
that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, push me towards that $25,000 a month mark. If I made $5,000 in a day, that would just give me a level up there. And I said that to myself, and then I simply let it go. I just aligned to it. I didn't put too much pressure on it, and I just let it go. And I went and played piano, and did that for around 15 minutes. And I came back, and when I came back, my computer was just blowing up, and I was making just tons of leads, and money was coming in for me during that period of time. And by the end of that night, I had made in that day, the number was over $10,000 within like 24 hours. So not only did I make that $5,000 in a day, I made 10,000. And then I kind of kept the momentum going. I'm like, whoa, this is real, right? I was confirming like, holy geez, this is possible.
Yeah.
And then just momentum kept going from there. And I stayed my head down in the process and continued pushing. But it was really that moment of being in alignment and having that coordination with what I wanted, who I was being, and then letting that go, which sounds kind of scary, right? You're like, I don't want to let this go. And as you touch upon, Quasi, we're taught so much within our society to really want things,
Mm-hmm.
and to desire things. And if you want it bad enough, you're going to get it. And through most of my life, I was very much a fighter archetype, where I would just fight and fight and fight to get stuff. And I would get there sometimes, but I would be exhausted. And, having this type of framework just makes everything a little bit easier. And it doesn't need to be that hard if you can get that alignment and that coordination, and let go of that desire, and then just, move into it. And with your intention, it makes things a lot better. And so yeah, that was the experience. I remember it very clearly.
It makes it a lot more fun too, right? Like you get a lot of these good emotions coming into it, and then it fuels you and propels you to want to do even more, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting because I see a lot of entrepreneurs, like they get started off in that survival mentality where it's like, oh, I don't have any money. I got to like feed myself and feed my family and like do all of this stuff, right? I only have like $1,500 in my bank account. I really want to like get this and get that. You start to become more self-centered and your motivations are extrinsic. It's like, okay, I need to get this and I need to get that. I need to get the car. I need to get the house. And then that propels you. But then once you
Yes.
get to a certain level, these entrepreneurs actually start to feel lost. They're like, oh, I already got all of these things. Now what? And then they start to feel depressed and like lost in life because they don't have like that intrinsic motivation of wanting to do something that they enjoy doing, like wanting to contribute to something or wanting to do something that they truly love to do every single day. And that's why they can't propel themselves anymore. So, I mean, the extrinsic thing, it works to a certain level, but then after that point, you got to like find something that is timeless, right?
It's funny you say that. So there's a couple things to touch on there for me personally. One was, you mentioned focusing on what you didn't have, or rather focusing on the negative. I only have this much money in my bank account. And that was a huge thing for me. I was focused on, I'll go back to the money that I owed the government, actually. I was focused
Yeah.
on like, holy crap, I owe this much money. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to claim bankruptcy? Like it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I was focusing on the problem versus the solution. And I was
Mm.
giving that too much energy. And I had realized that through my life, I'd gotten into a habit where I'd put things on a pedestal, kind of back to that desire thing where I wanted things so badly, but I put things on a pedestal and given them so much energy and or focused on what I didn't want versus what I did want. And that was creating problems. When I started to make that shift, which was not easy to change your mindset, you maybe don't realize how much you focus on things that you don't want versus what you do want in a given day. Things started to change. Like with the money I owed the government, for example, that literally went away. I ended up owing $5,000. That's it.
What?
Yeah. So I kept on questioning it. I asked my accountants to question it. And it turned out that there was a lot of back owing from my accountant. That wasn't my fault, that they ended up having to pay. And the government made a mistake on the return, not me. And that wiped
They
almost.
do that?
I wouldn't have guessed it, but I'm like, you know what? Something isn't right here.
I think a lot of people are learning a lot of things from this if they're watching. Like
seriously,
a lot of owners are watching.
I didn't even, wouldn't even think to question that. I'm like, something's not right here. And I questioned it. And it was an amount from years ago that they had on within my filings that wasn't right. It wasn't supposed to be there, but it added up over time and created this bloated amount of money that just wasn't true. So that went away. And so that problem was gone. And I think when you said intrinsically, you know, why you're doing things, to touch on that point, you know, with me, when I started right after I made a bunch of money, I bought a bunch of running shoes, which sounds strange. I have a few pairs right behind me, but I like sneakers growing up. And growing up for me, there was a connection actually with my mom and me that we would go and, you know, get the latest Jordans. And it was actually when I was staying in Florida quite often on a vacation, we'd go and get the latest Jordans from the plaza. And to me, I'm like, oh, this is a sense of accomplishment and, you know, get these shoes. And then I bought a few pairs of shoes. And then I'm like, well, now what? I don't really need more shoes. Like, what is going to push me forward now that I have this thing, right? Like, what's my next motivation? And it's really understanding that, finding joy in that process. And suddenly the money is like, I'm not going to say it's not the target or it's not important, because it is, but it's kind of it's just an outcome. Like what I'm doing is what's important. And I'm focused on I get up every morning to work on what I'm doing. And those material goals are already starting to change. Like I'm seeing that already. And now, if you would have said this to me 6 months ago, I'd be like, no way. But you kind of start to change your framework. And
absolutely.
So I've noticed that.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, it's important that you touch up on that, because a lot of people think that, oh yeah, you know what, I should just change my goals now. And while that's not necessarily true, you know, what drives you is what drives you. You know, it's something that's driving you at the moment. If you sweep it under the rug, you're going to create even more problems. If you want money now, if you want to have a successful business now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you've got to like start to watch that, because it will change. You can't keep holding on to it. Because when it does change, when your motivations change and you start to like force yourself to like want something you don't truly want, that's when you run into trouble, right? Because you're not moving with the flow of life. You're actually rather moving against it. So yeah, that's quite important that you touched up on that, and how it's changing from, you know, sneakers and like getting all these things to now doing something that you love every single day and growing at the process.
Yeah. And that made me think of something else that I think might be helpful for others to hear. This was a huge barrier for me to get over when I started this journey. And it was understanding what I wanted and getting clarity on what I wanted. And when people say, you know, you have to be clear on what you want, I'm like, well, of course I know what I want. What do you mean I need to get clarity? But if you actually sit and think through it, do you actually know what you want? Like, are you really clear on what it is you want in different areas of your life? For real? Can you see that spouse or that significant other? What do they look like? You know, how do they align to your values? Can you see what your home looks like, where you live? You know, just what do you look like? Like, who are you? And when you start to think through it a little bit more detail, you know, I realized that I didn't have these things very clear. They were a little vague. So then two things happened. And this is where I got stuck in both of these cases. One was that I was overwhelmed because I didn't have clarity. And I'm like, well, shoot, now I can't move forward because I don't have these things figured out. So
Right.
that was one. Number two was, once I had clarity, this thing felt like it was just almost not attainable, because it was like this dream life and I was here and it was over here. So I would say, if anyone is in that situation, so I've been through both now. And when I didn't have clarity on different areas of my life, what I did do was just focus on what you do know. And again, not on what you don't know, but focus on what you do know. What do you know? What are something that you do see for yourself? And as you take a step forward, the next stone will appear to walk on, right? So don't get caught up too much. Continue moving forward with what you do know, and things will start to open up for you. So don't let that stop you in your tracks. Because I've been there. I get it, but that's not the answer. The other side of the equation is, once you do have clarity, you're like, whoa, I do want all these things. Bring it down a little bit, bring it down to something attainable. And Quasi, you do a great job of coaching us through this in your course, but making something more attainable so you can reach it in goals that you have, versus something that you might again put on a pedestal because you see it as so far away. So you break that down into attainable goals and attainable steps. And as you reach one, it still might feel a little intimidating at first, but the more and more you sit with it and become comfortable with what those goals are, the more you're going to start to embody them and help, feel more like they're a part of you, versus something that's so far away. So those were two things that really had me stuck in place. And as you've said, Quasi, what I realized as well is that this isn't like I used to picture this like I was writing a letter and mailing it to the universe. And it's like, once it's in the mailbox, I can't get it back again. It's like, so I better make sure I have what I want on this letter exactly right. But that's not how it works. This is like a living, breathing document. You write down what you want, and that might change, and that's okay. It should. You evolve. It doesn't have to be this thing that you're signing away for life. And so don't put that much importance on it. Be in the flow of life, like Quasi said, and understand that this is a living, breathing document that you're designing as you go. But you need to have that clarity of focus to start, just to get you going, right? And then if you want to change along the way, that's totally fine. You can do that. So don't let that stop you.
Absolutely, man. And I think it's so powerful that you were able to internalize that lesson, because a lot of people fail to do it, right? Like the lesson with clarity, where it's like, focus on what you do know now instead of focusing on trying to gather something that's not there right now. Because if you keep doing that, you're going to aimlessly wander in all different directions, instead of working with what you've got and trying to just move forward when new information will pop up, and it will come to you when the time is right. Right? A lot of people don't see that, and that's why they end up frustrated, doubting themselves, and just moving in all different directions, with no focus in mind. Even if you did move in different directions, if you had what you know in mind, things would come up, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely that. But I wanted to go back to where you started off at, actually, because what I'm noticing right now, Mark, is you have a different kind of energy. There's a different kind of conviction, a different kind of certainty, a different kind of trust in life that things will work out. But this wasn't the case when I talked to you, I think this was a year ago, right? A year and a half, maybe. And you seemed kind of lost, you seemed like a different person. And I think you mentioned that you tried out a lot of these different personal development seminars. I think you actually mentioned that you just came from a Tony Robbins seminar. And, while that was helpful, you still felt like there was something missing. So I kind of want to talk about that. What was the missing piece for you that I guess Reality Mastery was able to cover?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'd been to other seminars, and Tony Robbins being one of them. And, for me, it was something that I could carry forward and work on. And where Tony Robbins is great, it's a fun time. It's usually like a weekend seminar, and there's a lot of energy from that. But, after that, what happens? And what do you actually continue to do? And for me, especially at the time, I was someone who very much needed to intellectualize the situation and the problem before I could move forward. I've loosened up on that now. I have a lot more faith and, and I'm a little more free flowing now. But, at the time, for me at least, with reality mastery, I like the idea that there was a process to go through with this, and that when we went in, there were an actual things that we would build, and then apply those things as we went through the program. So that was very helpful to me, that there was an action plan that didn't exist at the other seminars, and something that I could carry through and follow through on as well at my own pace. I try to do it as fast as possible, but that's something as well that, sometimes at the other seminars, it's like a fire hose of information. And sometimes it's good to be fully immersed like that, but sometimes you're like, man, I'm stuck on this point, and now you guys are like way over here. And
Right.
I feel like I can't get caught up yet because I don't understand this foundational point. Whereas in your program, I watched some videos a number of times, not because of lack of clarity from your side, but just from my side. I know I needed this to sink in more, and
Right.
I needed to do this exercise maybe more than once for me. And that gave me the opportunity to do so. And then I can move on. Then I could feel like, okay, I think I have this, I feel good now, foundationally. Now I can move on to the next step. Whereas in the other things that I tried before, I didn't have the chance to do that. That didn't allow me to do it that way.
Right. So going back to that point of you mentioning how you needed to intellectualize things a lot more, and now you have a lot more trust and faith, I kind of want to ask, like, what is, I guess, along those lines, what do you think was the biggest internal shift that made things so fluid and so easy for you now, and just, things working out? What was that big thing that happened that helped you go from, I guess, internally, from that old place where you just stuck and just spiraling in this negative feedback loop, to breaking out of that victimhood, to getting to, where you are now, where you're just this creator of your life?
Oh man. Yeah. Good question. There's probably a number of things. I think one huge thing for me is becoming more present in who I am and where I am. And that was something I had not realized before joining your program, just how distracted I am. And I'm still getting better at it. I still have a long way to go. I hear you speak, and how, the tools that you use and tactics that you use, and something I'm aspiring to still achieve. But, I think being more present within my surroundings really changed a lot of my life, and the idea that I was able to just feel more, in the moment and be in the flow with things. In terms of the faith and the trust, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one thing here. I think probably is one thing for sure would be when I started to confirm. And this is something else that you mentioned, Quasi, where instead of just creating affirmations, you create confirmations. And I remember when I first did this, and I even wrote in the Facebook group, because it's like my brain didn't want to make sense of this.
Mm-hmm.
I was overcomplicating it. I'm like, when do we do this? Like, how does this work? Like, what do you mean? And like, how am I confirming? Like, what am I confirming? And, it's like I was trying to create a barrier that wasn't there or something, but it was the idea that when you can start to see and identify things in your life changing as towards what you are looking for, and they exist. They're there all around you, even right now, but you're just not paying attention to them. When you start to see that, things start to shift, at least for me, from a perspective point of view, where you're like, oh, okay, like this isn't against me. Life is happening for me or with me, not against me here. And just to trust in that flow state more, and to see what comes up for me. So, I mean, those would be a couple that come to mind, at least. I would say a third, actually, real quick, would be that, and this comes down to your environment and your surroundings, and you discuss pendulums and how they can affect you with people around you. And I think just being an observer of those things, just being an observer of just not my own thoughts and emotions, but being an observer of other people's energy and their thoughts and emotions,
Mm-hmm.
that really changed a lot for me, where I'm like, I'm not going to lean into this right now. This is what is, this is what the pendulum wants to have happen for me. And this is what this person wants to have happen. I'm just going to observe this and not get attached to these other negative things in my surroundings. So that also helped me focus more on that flow state instead of intellectualizing every scenario.
Right. I think one big thing you might have forgotten to mention was the letting go piece.
100%. That is the biggest piece. Yes, for sure. And I did forget to mention that. See, here I go. I was intellectualizing too much again, but I was trying to find the other. So letting go, I would say, so the first time I did this letting go exercise, I was skeptical. And if anyone's watching this as well, and you might be skeptical too, well, that was me. I've been through this, and I've been to Tony Robbins, and it may not sound like I'm skeptical when it comes to these things, but I am a little bit, because I'm kind of a thinker first, versus feeling and trusting. So that's what can happen from my point of view. But when I first tried the letting go technique that I learned from Quasi, I'm like, this seems weird. I don't know. And I remember it. I was lying in bed, and I felt, I was feeling a lot of energy. Like it was feeling like anxiety. It was one night, and I had a lot going on. And this was before I was, made my big month. And I just didn't feel good. So I'm like, I'm going to sit here with this and just let this emotion be. And when I did that, it, I felt it capsize. I felt it dissipate. I felt it actually remove itself from me, and I was blown away. I'm like, holy geez, this actually works. And when I did that, it felt like, I'm like, wow, it changed my perspective on the idea that I do have control over how I'm feeling. And those feelings are attached to a countless amount of thoughts. And instead of trying to control every single thought that I had, if I could just center in on my emotion and let go of that emotion, then it changed everything for me. Like, it changed how I was able to manage my thoughts better, manage my day better. And so that was a huge piece, the letting go technique.
So what I'm also curious to know is, how did this, all of these internal changes start to reflect out in your business? So if you could give us a brief background about the business, what it is, who you help to, and like how it developed, because you mentioned that, you were in a business and it didn't work out with your partner. So did this come right after that? Or, this is something you gradually built up?
Yeah. So I was in corporate for probably 15 years. And after that, I started a company with a guy in Austin, Texas. And like it didn't, it didn't end that well. I discovered that he was lying about our financial situation to our investors, and he was diluting equity in shareholders when they weren't knowing. It was a bit of a messy situation. Mm-hmm. So after that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go back to corporate America. So I started doing some consulting, and that was like here or there. It wasn't going that well. And then I kind of just ran out of money, to be honest. I'm like, I don't have much money left. I don't know what I wanted to do, but I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. But then all those options seemed to come to a close real quick because I didn't have any money. So I was applying for corporate jobs and thinking that I could get back into that game real quick. That didn't happen. I was applying for jobs for probably 8 months. And I heard a range of things. I heard things like, well, like, this is for real, things that I've heard, that you're overqualified, that you're too old. And I was interviewing with like younger people in their 20s that, they're like, you're too old. I'm like, oh, am I really hearing this right now? I'm too old. Okay. So I'm like, well, maybe this isn't for me. So I didn't have any other options. So I reached out to a local company. I had moved back in with my parents, which was not ideal. I had lived and owned a condo in Toronto before moving to Austin. And, I had the life. I was married before. I had everything set up. I had the 6-figure job before. And then moving back in with my folks, and I didn't have any other choice but to get a job painting. So I was painting homes. And that's when I was making like $500 a week and trying to do any type of coaching and consulting I could on the side, just to try to get myself out of the situation.
Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah, man.
That
And
is insane. Like
so
I'm
the
blown
iron,
away.
yeah, man. So I was painting, and I remember having the meeting with this guy. So I found this guy on Google, and he had a company,
Yeah.
and I had a coffee with him, and we sat down, and he's like, "Do you have any experience painting?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Okay, well, this isn't like a college painting um, company. Like we paint $1 million homes, multi-million-dollar homes." And I'm like, "Just give me a chance. You know, I'm really stuck here. I learn quick. I'll work hard." And he's like, "Okay." So he gave me the job, and it was $500 a week. I had to pay for my own gas. It was 60 hours a week at least.
That's physically
And
taxing too. Like painting all day. Like you must be exhausted.
it was exhausting. And the commute there was at least an hour and a half each way. And I'd be on a ladder, like on a ladder for 8 hours a day straight, like, which was very challenging. And I'm like, so I didn't have any money. So the first thing I did was when I got my paycheck, I bought audiobooks and I started to like listen to just any YouTube video I can, your videos included, and just to try to get me turned around in the right direction. And I'm like, what do I have here? I have time. So these are things that I can do. I can listen to things while I'm doing this work. So I started to do that. And then eventually when I got home, I started to notice things in this man's company that I thought could be improved. So as tired as I was, I'd go home and I would like work on, I think we can make this process better, or I think we can do this a little bit better. And I just would pick away and start giving him some things while still trying to apply for jobs that I wasn't getting interviews for I wasn't working out. And then he started to notice, and he actually recommended me to one of his friends who had a job opening. And that job was at a marketing company working with an automotive company as their biggest clients. And I had some automotive experience. So I chatted with him, and I decided to leave the painting company and join this as a contract position, which was ideal for me. I didn't want to have something as a full-time employee anyways. And from there, I just worked at that. And then one thing led to another.
So where in this point did you join Reality Mastery?
I hadn't joined yet.
Okay.
So this was when I took that job, we had our first phone call. I was watching your videos just right around that time as well.
Got it.
So like right around there. Like, so in the transition from painting to this marketing job is when we chatted. Mm-hmm. And then, so then I started posting some things on Instagram. And I mean, I have done nothing. Like I don't even have a website for my company yet. Okay. Like I have a lot of artwork and assets done, but I have not even gotten that far to do that. But I started to just post some things on my Instagram, and some friends that I knew were reaching out to me. They're like, "Hey, like this stuff is, it seems like you know what you're doing. We might need some help in this area. Are you available?" Sure. So I was taking on some side contracts, and I was over delivering and undercharging big time. And that felt a little uncomfortable at the time, but that led to other things. And that structure led to opening up other doors, which then led to me going from 7K to 50K to 40K and like that. So like those things kind of built up over time. And that attitude of, I guess, over delivering and undercharging was something that I kept with me for probably like 4 or 5 months last year. And right around that time is when I joined Reality Mastery. And I started to apply what you had taught. And then in February,
so when you joined, you were at 7K a month?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. You were watching the YouTube videos around when you're doing 2K a month in the painting job, and then you went into the marketing job, and then you joined Reality Mastery, and then applied the stuff. So you joined, I think this was back in August or something?
Yes, but I didn't actually start taking the course until the end of the year. So I sat on it for a bit.
Okay.
And when I started to actually take the course, I took the course at the end of the year, and I finished it in midway through February.
Yep.
And yeah, so then after that, it was literally after finishing the course, just, well, the beginning, midway through March is when things started to blow up for me. So
Right.
just like a month after that.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I guess back to that original question of how do you think this internally, this internal shift of you letting go of that past, because I think you've had a lot of big epiphanies, like a lot of big epiphanies, which you posted about in the group. How do you think all of those epiphanies, how to letting go of all of those things, learning coordination, getting clear, how do they contribute to you, you know, going full in on your business and translate it into that external result of 7K turning into 50K?
I mean, that's the whole game, right? Like how they contribute to it that is now a focus of mine every week. Am I coordinated and aligned to what I want and what my intentions are?
Mm-hmm.
Am I acting in a way that is aligned to those things? Is my mindset aligned to who I want to become? These are things that I ask myself, not even weekly. These are things that I go over daily in the
Mm.
morning and before I start my day. Even how I start my day is totally different, right? Like how I write in my journal and how I do my time blocking, and it's just it's preparing myself for the world instead of letting the world just come at me. But I mean, yeah, to answer your question directly, those are, yeah, I would those are the main reasons why I've been able to make this shift, is being aware
Mm-hmm.
of those things, and yeah, just taking the action that aligns to it. And like, it's not perfect. Like I'm not perfect every day, right? Like this, for example, this past week, I've been a little grumpy, like, and but I know that, I'm aware of that, and
Right.
I'm not fighting it, as you say. It's just like, well, let that come and let that go, uh, and don't hold on to things. And that's been a huge shift for me, realizing that definitely before, who I was in every aspect of my life, I would say, is that there was this sense of attainment and attaching myself to certain things, and that would bring joy and whatever. But life isn't like that. Life is very much like a flow. Nothing is permanent.
Right.
There is no end location. Everything is constantly in a state of change. And when you wrap your head around that, really, things start to change for you. You start to see things differently, and things start to flow into your life more, because you've kind of eliminated this barrier. I think these subconscious anchors that you've established through your life are suddenly no longer there, and
Mm.
you can become a part of the life, because you're not holding these things that are actually weighing you down and
Right.
slowing you down, because now you're suddenly within the flow, and which has been happening the whole time. You've just been choosing to try to stay stationary, right?
Right.
Which, and the reason behind that makes sense. Like, it creates a feeling of safety for us, that we can remain safe and close ourselves, and that will help maintain our survival. And it makes sense psychologically, but that's not, unfortunately, how it works, especially not to achieve what you want and the goals that you want to achieve in life.
Yeah, you're just
It's
closing yourself off to life itself, right? When you hold on
yeah,
to safety and survival, you're just closing yourself off to what life really has to offer. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, like that, exactly. So I mean, and it's like, it's not perfect and it's not easy, and I still have a long way to go. But it's, once you start to understand this and be aware of it,
Mhm.
then things can start to change and open up. Um, and moving forward, right? Like you say, Quasi, who am I becoming? It's not
Right.
like you're gonna, and it sounds like a lot. And even with me here in this story, that I go from 7K to 50K, which that happened, but there's a lot of underlying things that are progressing slowly that
Right.
people don't see, right? So it's not like this suddenly, and it did
It's
happen
it's
like
like
that,
you
but
work for 3 years and then you become an overnight success after 3 years of working.
yeah, exactly, right? Like, even your program, like, it took me a little, I chose to take longer to go through it.
Mhm.
I watched things over and over, and I watched your videos before, and I was doing work before, and then suddenly it's like, how did this happen so fast? And people around you even are like, how did that change happen? But what is really happening is, there's a progression that you're getting better at, and it's not perfect every day, but you're getting better at letting go. You're getting better at getting more clear on what your goals are and releasing attachment to things. And like all of these things contribute to it. You're getting more consistent with your setting your day up properly and reading your self-mastery guide, for example, and integrating these things into your life, whether it's again your diet or your exercise. Like you're picking away at it, and that's the real secret that is behind all of this. It's understanding that this is not an overnight success, even though it looks that way on the surface sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what a lot of people miss, right? That's why everyone's so hell-bent on finding the next tactic or strategy to try and like make it work. And that's why they get so like lost in all of this marketing, because on the surface level, you're seeing some direct tactic being applied, which yields a result. But what you don't see is the who that applies all of these tactics, right? That person has to get into that right frame of mind. It's kind of like giving a monkey a hammer. The monkey wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But if you give this to the person who would know what to do with the hammer, they would hammer the nail at the right place, at the right spot. And then they would come out of it with a result. So all of those things, I guess, are extremely important. But yeah, Mark, I guess just to conclude everything, because I think this was really insightful. And what I think were the biggest keys for you were obviously the letting go piece and not holding on to things, trusting, having faith in life and not intellectualizing too much, and obviously getting clear and consistent with everything. But yeah, I guess to conclude all of this, if someone were in the same situation as you were in when we first spoke, maybe someone's on the fence about joining, they don't know what they're in for, they've been watching the videos too, or maybe they just recently found out about realitycreator.com and what we do, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say go for it. I would say honestly that if you might be feeling like you're in a situation where, well, this doesn't apply to me. This applies to this person who I'm watching right now. It being me in this case, and I get that because I used to be there too, and I used to think the same thing. And your mind will make excuses to disassociate from the problem that you're having versus the problem that you're hearing, and to say like there's a uniqueness for me that is only my problem, that doesn't associate with what Mark's saying or what other people are saying. You just don't get it. And I would say that is again a tactic of feeling safe within yourself, and that it isn't true. So within Quasi's program, I'm sure you can speak to this more, Quasi, but you have people from all walks of life, all different situations, all ages, and we get similar results, right? And so if that's something that's holding you back, just realize that the program is tailored for you, and you'll tailor it for you as well as you go through it. I mean, take the step. Like after going through many programs and seminars, I will say that this is the one that has given me the results that I've been looking for. So,
dude, that first part that you mentioned gave me goosebumps. No joke. Where you're like, that's a tactic of the mind to create safety for you when you make all of those excuses to keep yourself stuck. And I think that's something that we don't see because we're operating from that place. I even myself sometimes make all of these excuses of, why I can't do that and why I can't do this because I'm this way and I'm this special snowflake. But yeah, I guess, Mark, that's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. Dude, thank you so much for sharing your story. This was so valuable. If you'd like to reach out to Mark and find out more about what he does, I'll attach his socials in the description below. And of course, you can apply for the program. The link for that will also be there. Thank you guys for watching. Mark, thank you again so much for doing this. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.
All right.